Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to SH Kelkar and Company Limited's earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Anup Pujari from CDR India. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on SH Kelkar and Company Limited's Q4 and FY 2021 earnings conference call. We have with us Mr. Kedar Vijay, Full-time Director and Group CEO, and Mr. Shrikant Mate, VP and Group CFO of the company. We would like to begin the call with opening remarks from the management, following which we'll have the forum open for a question and answer session. Before we start, I would like to point out that some statements made in today's call may be forward-looking in nature, and a disclaimer to this effect has been included in the earnings presentation shared with you earlier. I would now like to invite Mr. Kedar Vijay to make his opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our Quarter 4 and Full Year 21 earnings call. Discuss the operating and financial performance of this quarter. I trust that you and your families are safe and maintaining all precautions against the spread of COVID-19. To begin with, I am pleased to share that we have delivered a healthy performance driven by the normalization in demand inquiries, both domestic as well as international markets during the quarter. We saw improved client engagements and new wins across the domestic FMCG space. This supported the full year performance in FY 2021, which was otherwise affected on account of pandemic-related disruptions in the first quarter of the year. Our PFS business also delivered strong results on the back of increasing demand and volume offtake in the Italian and other European markets. Overall, on a consolidated basis, the total revenues from operations during FY 21 grew by 19% on a year-on-year basis, and on a like-to-like basis, revenues grew by 3% on a year-on-year without adjusting for the period of disruption. On the profitability front, a prudent inventory management in addition to better product mix enabled us to maintain margins at a healthy level despite the global supply chain and raw material inflation issues, particularly in the second half of the fiscal. Our gross margins during the year stood at 43% and EBITDA margins were at 19%. During the quarter, gross margin stood stable at 42%. It is encouraging to note that in the last 8 quarters, we have consistently delivered steady gross margins within the range of 42 to 44%. This indicates our business model's financial efficiency and stability. The reported PAT during the year stood at rupees 143.7 crores. Excluding exceptional gain and loss in FY 21 and FY 20 respectively, the PAT in FY 21 stood at 131.2 crores as against 71.2 crores year previous, higher by 84% year on year. From a consolidated balance sheet perspective, we were able to significantly lower our net debt by rupees 112 crores during the quarter owing to robust collections, strong cash flows and normalizing inventory. This translated to a healthy debt-to-equity ratio of 0.4x. Going forward, as there are no major capex plans on hand, the focus remains on healthy free cash flow generation. We should be able to further strengthen our balance sheet position in the upcoming fiscal. Coming to our business developments, I'm happy to share that in the month of April 2021, our wholly owned subsidiaries, Keva Italy and CFS, acquired 70% equity stake of Nova Fragrances SRL. Nova is an Italy-based company specializing in fragrance development and marketing with specific focus on premium customers and high-end products, particularly in hair care and beauty care. This is a value accretive and synergistic inorganic growth opportunity for us and is in sync with our growth strategy to expand addressable markets in Italy and Europe. In another development, SH Kelkar has now become the exclusive distributor for isobionic product Santalol in India. This new fragrance ingredient is the first joint product from BASF and Isobionix and is now available for the Indian market through SHK. The new fragrance ingredient is an alternative to sandalwood oil and is produced by a biotechnological basis from renewable raw materials. We look forward to improved momentum through this product. On the demand side, while we are witnessing healthy wins across new and existing customers, the environment in the ongoing quarter has softened on account of the second wave of COVID-19. We are monitoring the situation closely and are undertaking all precautionary measures to mitigate business risks. Our key focus area remains on steadily growing our business and maintaining margins within the healthy levels. We continue to look at the new fiscal from a growth perspective and will reassess the situation by end of this quarter. Our engagement with clients, especially in the domestic FMCG segment, remains strong and we are registering steady wins across all categories. This should enable us to sustain our growth momentum going forward. Before we close, I would like to share that the Board of Directors at the meeting held yesterday recommended a dividend of rupees 0.75 per share, in addition to the interim dividend of rupees 1 per share announced in November 2020. For the full year FY 2021, the overall dividend would be rupees 1.75 per share. It keeps in view the board's philosophy of conservative cash management and its focus on preserving liquidity in the company, given the unprecedented operating environment that we all face. On that note, I would now request the moderator to open the forum for any questions or suggestions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Rohit Nagraj from Sunidhi Securities. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations on a great set of numbers for the entire year. So my first question is in terms of our business. So during the pandemic year, we have seen that probably some of the lower end of the businesses have not performed well or partially gone out of the business. So has it affected our market share in the domestic market, and have we seen some kind of a change from the unorganized to organized, which has helped us in the domestic market? Thank you.
So, domestic market across all categories, we have maintained our market share. Vis-a-vis the overall FMCG fragrance and flavor, there is no particular category or client type which has done better or worse. In the initial part of the year, the smaller clients and certain sectors such as deodorants and premium products did not do very well, but they caught up in the second half of the year with the pent-up demand and destocking that had taken place in the first quarter of the year. So in the full year basis, we have managed to maintain our market share across all categories in the domestic market.
Fair enough. So the second question is in terms of our debt reduction. So we have reduced the debt sizably. Despite that, we are maintaining a significant cash on our books. So is it probably to again engage in some inorganic initiatives, or this is just a safeguard from any COVID-related disruptions that may happen? Thank you.
So as a part of the business continuity risk management last year, the board had mandated us to increase the cash holdings at the various bank accounts which are the operating regions. We will review that post-pandemic and bring down our free cash held in the balance to reduce the overall cash in the balance sheet.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot and best of luck, sir. I'll come back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Utpal Shah from Quest Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. Sir, just wanted your view on the growth ahead. So for FY22, considering, once we are already seeing some pandemic issues, and so if you can throw some light on the guidance for FY22 in terms of revenue as well as margin.
I think we have a very peculiar situation where we are in the midst of a pandemic where there is a kind of large uncertainty. I would not give a year guidance. Obviously, current quarter is softer than the previous quarter. It is already almost 2 months of the quarter, so we are looking at softness in this quarter. For the rest of the year, if I extrapolate from last year, I would imagine that the second quarter, our growth rate should resume to the average 12% year-on-year growth that we have in the underlying business that we do. I don't see anything from the pandemic last year or this year which has affected our market share or future growth prospects. We continue to grow in all our categories. Our clients and brands have done exceedingly well in this year despite the pandemic, although it was sporadic. So some brands, some products did not do well in the first half of the year. They picked up in the second half of the year. So likewise, we anticipate that this year will be a year of mixed bags, but I would not venture to give a guidance. On the longer term, we maintain our 12% plus CAGR growth guidance on a kind of 2-3 year horizon. But where this year will end up in that journey, it's difficult to fathom that at this point. Through the year, as business environment changes for both the positive post-pandemic, we will give a proper guidance and update to the community.
Sure, sir. But in terms of margins, do you think the level of margins that we are doing right now can be maintained ahead?
So we have been quite prudent in our inventory, and as the prices costs have been going up, we have accumulated additional inventory. So we will pass on the additional cost increases to our customers as far as possible. I think there will be some transient margin pressure, may not be very large, but maybe 1 odd month or 1 odd quarter we may see some decline. But in the long term, the full year basis, longer term, we will continue to maintain the trajectory of the gross margin around the 42-43% level.
Sure, sir. And sir, in terms of apart from India, Europe as well has been opening up quite well. So your views about CFS for the year ahead, and secondly, what are our plans for Nova, considering it's a high gross margin business? So what is the management looking forward to in terms of Nova acquisition? Thank you.
Yeah. So the general environment in Europe is, as you mentioned, improving. It is ahead of the curve in terms of COVID and vaccination. We anticipate by July, August that most of Europe will be fully open and back to normal business. As such, our business in CFS has not been negatively affected by the pandemic even last year or this year. And we continue to see good growth across all the categories where we are operating. With the addition of Nova, we are also able to go to additional clients which were not accessible to CFS in the past. The acquisition of Nova is a neat marketing and development company which fits in the manufacturing setup that CFS already has in Italy. It is also an Italian company based out of Milan, so it is very easy to operate seamlessly and merge the management teams of these two companies. We anticipate that the incremental growth of Nova, so we already have some sales, intercompany sales, prior sales to Nova from CFS. Netting off for that, we should end up with about 1.7 to 1.8 million of incremental sales due to the acquisition of Nova.
And so in terms of margins, because Nova operates at very high gross margins, I believe.
Yes. So in terms of margins, I think Nova product range, as it is in the premium hair care beauty products, it is at the higher end of the margin profile. Within Europe, it is, the consolidated core business margin of CFS is around 54-53% gross margin level. And with the addition of Nova, which is slightly higher at the ballpark 58-59% gross margin. Last year, numbers of Nova were even better because of the reduction in the raw material prices in the interim mid-year. I think on a healthy basis, it will be on the higher end of our product range, around the 58-59% gross margin level.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. I'll jump back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Viraj Kacharia from Securities Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Just a couple of questions. First on CFS. So if you just want to understand, how would have the business grown in 21 and vis-a-vis the market growth, say in Italy, and just to add to that, what would be share of, say, fine fragrance now for the business? How has that moved for us, in the last couple of years? So any perspective you can give on that?
So I think the CFS growth rate has been in excess of 8% organic in the core business on last, I would say, 10 odd months. The underlying business growth in Italy has been around the 1.5%, 1% to 1.5% industry growth. So Nova and CFS together have grown at 8 to 9% clip, 3 to 4 times faster than the average market in Italy. Going forward, we anticipate we will continue to grow at a healthy pace of roughly 10% per annum in CFS Nova combined entity.
Okay, so what is driving this higher growth for us? Because the market itself is growing, at about almost 4 or 3. So is it we are kind of also getting traction in X of other than Italy, other markets? That's why we are gaining more business. Perspective.
In terms of perspective, the Italian market is as large as the Indian market, so it's quite a sizable market, and it is one of the companies in the top 2 or 3 companies in the market share in Italy. So we look at it as a good platform for us to build further growth in Italy and then from there on to other countries in Europe. The market size of Italy is quite large compared to the per capita consumption of fragrance and flavors is quite high.
Okay, and in terms of the additional market share which we have gained, how is the mix in terms of the customer base there? So is it largely big FMCG players or regional players where we are gaining share from? Any perspective you can say what is driving this?
Yeah, so again, it's very similar positioning point customer type from what we have in India. We are largely dealing with the accepting a few businesses, largely with the regional Italian brands, and they are the brands which are working and growing in the market. We have good relations and good customer engagement with them for multiple years.
Okay, and second question was, if we look at our overall financials, we have this line item of intangible assets under development written off. So, if you look at last 3 years, we have been, writing off around, say, 15 to 20 crores of expenses every year. So what are these towards, what is the write-off towards, and how should we understand this particular expense going forward?
So actually, if you see, there is a what is called CWIP, so write-off in terms of capitalization. There is a additional capitalization in terms of the R&D projects in pipeline. So I think at this moment we are more or less in a steady state. We are writing off some of the projects that did not complete or did not materialize into sales. And at the same time, we have new projects where there is a work in progress. If you look at the overview, the kind of balancing number in the balance sheet is ballpark 20 crores, which is fairly steady state. It's not that we are capitalizing R&D or writing off R&D. Broadly in the year, the amount of projects that don't see the light of the day and those that see the light of the day and new projects coming in is balancing out each other.
So asking because, earlier this expense write-off was not really there 3 years back. So, just in last 3 years, we've seen good amount of expense written off.
No, the policy of this has changed from the accounting year, I think 2016 when the Ind AS came in. So that's when this policy change was made. So this is now 3 years down the line, there will be write-off and there will be additions, and there should be no net, very small net difference in a typical normal year.
Okay, come back.
Our normal R&D projects are running for a year, anywhere between 12 to 18 months. So we keep them capitalized in the balance sheet, and when they are actually materialized, either they are successful, in which they get into capitalized asset, intangible asset. If they are not successful projects, then they will get written off. Ballpark, this is quite steady state. So in terms of what is written off and what is capitalized on new projects, it will not result in any additional cost or deferment of cost.
So this will basically keep on.
Yeah, basically it's like a rotation because the projects are longer than 1 year. These are some of the expenses of last year get written off this year. Some of the expenses of this year get capitalized and will get written off next year. Now that it has been in play for 3 years, it's kind of a steady state. It really doesn't, there will obviously be some quarters up and down, but it's a pretty steady state scenario that projects that were initiated last year, some of them will get written off. Some of the projects will get initiated this year, and so there is sort of cost carry forward in the picture, and then cost brought back or brought forward and brought. So it's net to net, there is no impact on the P&L.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jainesh Chheda from Dimensional Securities. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir, and congrats for the good set of numbers. I just wanted to understand the long-term outlook for the company. How are we headed, and what is the 5-year story for the company? Since there is no capex plan, so how do we move forward from here?
Yeah, so as I alluded earlier, we have done sizable capexes in the past 3-4 years and prior to the IPO as well. We are now looking at a maintenance growth business where we have sufficient capacities, and we are looking to continue to grow the business with the capacity utilization and value upgradation of our current product mix. We are sort of planning for a normalized 12% CAGR growth in the next 2 to 3 years, and this will automatically flow down in terms of cash flow and profitability growth as we grow our operating size vis-a-vis the capex and the operating leverage kicks in. So as we continue to grow, our margins on the operating margins will slightly improve, and we will then focus on continuing to work with the markets, which are the 3 markets of Europe, India, and Southeast Asia, at least, which is where we are currently operating.
Okay. So what will be your current capacity utilization, and can we have a breakup in terms of flavor capacity utilization and fragrances capacity utilization?
So fragrances capacity utilization is around the 55% mark. Flavors is also around the 50% mark. We have capacity utilization in actually in the China plant, which is at the moment available for further expansion for us. And we continue to invest incremental investments to enhance the capacity. So we don't need any large capex for increasing the capacity. Within kind of 3-4 crore investments, we will be able to increase our capacity by 20 to 30%.
Okay. And in terms of margin, I suppose you will move towards more value-added products. So what will be the margins going forward, like in 3 to 5 years?
So I think incrementally we have indicated that our current 40 to 43% should go up to 45% in a 5-year period. We are planning to, as part of our product mix, this margin profile should improve.
And in terms of EBITDA?
EBITDA level, I think we will manage around 19 to 20% EBITDA, which is the current year level. We will maintain it at that kind of glide path.
So the increased gross margin will not flow to EBITDA, like, so if you are saying 3% gross margin expansion in next 5 years, so plus we expect the other expenses will not grow as faster.
No, there will be partly other expenses and partly R&D expenses, which we will incur for future growth. So as we get margin expansion, we will also need to continue to invest higher on the R&D. If you go back 2 years, we have gone up from kind of last 5 years, 6 years from 1.5% R&D to sales ratio to 5.5% 2 years ago. We brought it down to 4%. And depending on the market growth opportunities, we will look at improving the R&D expenditure to the relevant growth areas. In case there is no specific R&D targets, then we will obviously increase our bottom line EBITDA percentage. But typically, our expectation is to focus on future growth and continue to invest on growth, keeping a sort of steady state 20% EBITDA level for the business. And incremental gains, we will like to invest back in faster growth rather than more margin.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll join back the queue.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, I'd like to remind the participants to limit their questions to 2 per participant. If time permits, you may join the queue for any follow-up. The next question is from the line of Bharat Sheth from Quest Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, Kedar. Congratulations on excellent performance. Hello.
Thank you.
Kedar, now going ahead, I mean, particularly in personal care, and so which is a part of fragrance business, which is a part of the personal care. So where the consumer, I mean, call for transparency and traceability is increasing, and people are looking for more of a sustainable product. And so what exactly we are doing to grow in that line, and so that is a little more a premium category?
So personal care is largely products like hand wash and soap. It's not one of the premium categories. More or less beauty products, fine fragrances is more premium category as far as fragrances is concerned.
Correct.
There is obviously safety from transparency and regulation, which we are all following at the moment. We don't see any challenge on that basis for our company going forward. Whenever there is a demand from the client or consumers in terms of declaration, product declaration, safety declarations, and so on and so forth, we are following all the norms, and we are focused on giving the transparent, reliable, and proper product information to our clients and consumers.
Okay. And coming to the entry into this large FMCG MNC entity, now with Nova and CFF under our control, so how do we see that opening up the gate for our company, so sourcing from India?
No, there is no impact of CFF and Nova in terms of the global MNC, although with the fact that we have some of the global MNC headquartered in Europe and we have local access with our office. But as such, the addition of Nova or CFF does not change our position for the supply to the global MNC. We continue to do our long-term research programs and engagement with them as before. And if anything, CFF and Nova has slightly enhanced that position by having a local office in Europe, but it does not change our position on the business forward.
Okay, so last question. We have been working last couple of years to get entry into Indian MNC, global MNC in India. So have you been able to make some kind of an inroad, or if you can give some more color new client addition during the year, and how do we expect to grow that business?
In context of that, we do have some inroads in the global business. Within India, particularly last year and again this year, due to the pandemic, it has been largely focusing on current clients and new business with the existing clients and known clients. With the global MNCs, our engagement in this period has been lower than previous periods. As I alluded earlier, it's only a matter of time. It's not so much driven entirely in our control. We will continue to offer our service and continue to work with the global MNC as they develop their local brands and regional supply chain strategies.
And last question, with your permission, with this marketing, of BASF Isobionics permission, we will be just, despite BASF having their own presence in India, so whether that can be helpful for us, and what is the underlying market size?
So the sandalwood oil, as you probably know, is a very unique material from the Indian forest products.
Correct.
Typically, sandalwood oil takes 15-16 years of the tree growing to a certain size, and then there is a potential deforestation and risk to scarcity or bio. We effectively need to cut trees to make sandalwood oil.
Correct.
With that in mind, we have worked with a company in Netherlands called Isobionics, and we have made this product called Santalol, which is the main key ingredient of sandalwood oil. This allows the usage of sandalwood oil in a more sustainable manner, where it is made from biotechnology and renewable resources without deforestation or cutting down the sandalwood tree. So this is the primary objective for bringing this product back to the market. This is in terms of business size, the sandalwood oil market is in excess of 100 crores a year. So there is a good opportunity. But what we see is that more than the current market, having a renewable source with a stable supply will encourage the use of sandalwood oil again in perfumery, which has been declining in terms of volume year on year. And as the volumes continue to grow, we will see the net effect of this business helping us to grow into the premium and upcoming natural-based products that is the new trend. So it is helping us to distribute this product to revive the natural product which is now in short supply or in scarcity. And there is a lot of know-how within the company and in the industry for using sandalwood oil, which we are also seeking to revive as an additional leg up for growth.
You said that this has been developed by us in connect jointly with this Isobionics.
Yeah, so we have been working with Isobionics via our PFW research development, when Isobionics also a Netherlands-based company. Subsequently, Isobionics has been taken over by BASF, but we continue to keep our relationship and manage this product.
Okay, thanks. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anish Jabani from Banyan Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Good afternoon. I hope that I will. Question that I would want to check with you. So if we were to adjust for the CFF growth in the last 3 quarters, so we have done 13 odd %, so in line with what you have been guiding of 12% growth. And if we look at before that, our growth was in the 5% range. So would you be able to give some color on, say, the top 3-4 things which have improved our growth? What makes you confidence of the 12% growth going forward? And how are you kind of guiding for this 12% growth? What are you exactly?
So I mean, we have had many years of double-digit plus growth in our portfolio and business. The 5% CAGR actually was a result of the dual effect of demonetization and GST, where there is a lot of smaller clients whose business actually degrew. And net effect for us was a declining business in certain sectors and certain categories, which resulted in a lower growth rate in these years. Since 2016-17, from year 19-20, we are seeing that we are back on the normal growth level, since the smaller clients where there was GST demonetization, that has kind of flown through, and the base of these customers has reduced from roughly 20% to approximately 10% in 19-20. So with the new customer base, which is most of the large and medium-sized FMCG in India and overseas, we are continuing to grow at a steady double-digit growth. And it's not a new phenomenon. I think the degrowth of certain category was actually a phenomenon which was specific to those peculiar large changes in the tax structures and other macro effects. Now that we are in a normal environment, we are able to continue to grow. Our larger customers are still growing at more than 12%, maybe even around the 15% CAGR in the last 2-3 years. And we anticipate that this growth will continue. Between the smaller customers' growth and larger customers' growth, the larger customers have been growing faster in this last couple of years. And we see this trend evolving. And also we anticipate a good level of new, what I would call modern age startup FMCG products to come up in the next 2-3 years, which will help us further get growth in the regional markets.
So just a question. I mean, what are some of the new developments that are there in the company which can help us to get growth beyond 12%, say, after the next 2-3 years, where you can foresee, the growth up for beyond that?
So we have obviously the Italian acquisition, which will help us to grow in that market, that will assist us to take new markets. We have continued to invest in product development, sales and marketing in Southeast Asia, Middle East markets to further enhance our growth. Within the domestic market, we anticipate that the overall market should grow at 7-8%, and with a 12-13% growth, we will be healthy market share growth. If there are some new opportunities which come, we will take it up in terms of global MNC business and other opportunities. But the 12-13% underlying business growth is what we anticipate as the environment, and we will manage to continue to grow that within our current portfolio of customers.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dipen Sheth from Crystal Investment Advisors. Please go ahead.
Hi, and thanks for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I have two questions. One on the margin expansion that is visible during the year. What I can see from your consolidated summarized P&L statement on page 5 of the presentation, and I checked your results release on the exchange as well for finer details to recheck. The margin expansion of almost 450 bips on a year-on-year basis, for a full year-on-full-year basis. It's accompanied by almost no change in gross margins because your raw material expenses have risen around 19% in line with your top line. Okay. Now, I would understand that while it's unfair to look at a one-year phenomenon, I want to understand that whether this is something that is likely to change in view of what is happening, and how do you see the fact that you actually cut down other expenses by almost 1% during the year? What were the heads in those expenses which you could cut down even as you were raising business revenues by 19% during the year that enabled you to post this margin expansion?
Yeah, so on the expense rationalization, we have cut down on our R&D expenses, which we were additionally doing in the Netherlands as a result of closing down one of the R&D expenditures there. We have cut down the 1%, which I alluded from 5.5% to 4% last year. As we continue to grow, we will reinvest in R&D for the future growth. For the balance in terms of gross margin management, we are managing the inventories in a manner that we are selling basically to our clients from stock in hand, so that any large input changes are we try to pass it on to our clients with a 2-3 months lag. If you see this year, we've had some hit in the flavors, particularly in the last month of the year. So we've had some hit on the gross margin there. But the price increases for flavors and the normalization of the raw material on the flavors has already happened. So we anticipate again the gross margin should restore even in the flavor, and that might add some small 0.2% improvement in gross margin. At the same time, there may be some new inflationary pressures on many of the bulk solvents, and there is always this creeping inflation when oil prices are going up slowly. There will be effect of that eventually in the chemicals that constitute or are the supply of feedstocks for our industry. So eventually, we anticipate a 7 to 8% inflation to hit us in this year on average, and we look forward to passing this on to the clients at various stages, step by step, to manage our gross margin in the 42 to 43% range.
So certainly, from a forward-looking perspective, you don't see gross margins as being a big lever in our margin expansion game.
No, the gross margins that we have is a net effect of the product type. So the gross margin for the bulk products is lower, so a specialty or certain categories is higher. So our average is around this 42, 43. And we are talking about 4,000, 5,000 different products, major products. It's not that one product or new product introduction is going to change the nature of the business. It is all incremental. When we say 0.5% improvement, we are talking about introducing new products at 50 to 53, maybe 55% gross margin, and that size of business, it takes 5, 7, 10 years to grow to any meaningful size. So effectively, I think the gross margin expansion is not an immediate figure. It will play out over a longer term if you take 5 years or 10 years kind of horizon.
Okay. And my second question is with respect to how you report EBITDA and EBITDA margin. I can see that you've included 23.5 crores of other income for the year in your top line, and that is the top line, 1345.4 crores, from which you deduct your total expenditure. So as I can see that there is a very large jump in this year on things that are, not really recurring. There is a foreign exchange gain on export contracts. It happens. You can also run into a foreign exchange loss, right? And then there is a big jump in one head called other, inside other income, from 6 crores to 13 crores. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
No, so some of these are regular incomes, and this is a result of our hedging policies in terms of foreign exchange. When you look at the overall impact, while there is an impact of the foreign exchange gain, these are largely forward premiums sort of gains, so they are booked, and we are not dependent on any speculative price or currency fluctuation. So each of our activity is totally hedged, and this is the incremental benefit out of the hedging of foreign exchange. With our imports and the exports and European business, we are largely internally hedged from foreign exchange input and output, and then we use the banking financial hedges to ensure that we have fixed rates which give us this foreign exchange gain. So this is not expected to be a one-off gain because of certain reason. This is instituted in a policy, and while the gain, unless there is something majorly changing, this would be a normal feature of our cost structure.
Frankly, I'm not sure how 2 to 10 crores can be recurring. But anyway, and the other part of other income, which has gone from 6 to 13 crores.
Which is that?
So it comes after the foreign exchange line under the other income head on page 5. It's 13.4 crores for the year.
So can I explain that?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
So this includes roughly 4 crores of provisions which are no longer required, which are written back. So in that sense, it could be non-operating, but there is some or the other provision because the closing of quarter or year involves estimation, and therefore there is an impact. So that is 4 crores. And there is interest, largely 3 crores is on the tax refund. So that one could say is non-recurring. Those are 2 big tickets apart from the other sale of scrap and donation.
Okay, fair enough. Finally, if you'll permit me one more question. Once you review your requirement of cash that you have to keep on the books, would you rather retain the debt on the books or distribute some of the cash?
So we, as I alluded earlier, we have increased our position of cash given the uncertainty in the last year and even at the moment. While the total amount of cash looks quite large, it's distributed over various operating companies and regions, so it's a consolidated quantum. So we like to keep 1 or 2 months of fixed cost and some lever and buffer for the working capital and so on and so forth. Mindful of the uncertainty last year was very acute. We have increased our overall holding. I think we can review that and reduce the cash held in and repay some of the debt on the ODs or otherwise at this point.
Okay. Thanks very much. That will be it.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ravi Purohit from Securities Investment Management Private Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Most of my questions have been answered. Just one, more business-oriented question from a capital point of view. Historically, we've looked at our ROEs over cycles, right, across down cycle, up cycle, and it seems that we do kind of a lot of work for our end clients in terms of taking the working capital investments on our books, taking the R&D expenses, so in effect, there is a lot of work that we do for our client, but in terms of ROE that the business has been able to generate over a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year period has been around 14-15% average net of tax. So is there an inherent nature of this business, like globally your peers, everybody else around in the business kind of ends up making this much Because from the previous calls, I know I kind of understand and learn that there is a lot of effort that goes. Yeah.
Just to answer that very clearly, if you look at the last 5 years, the results have been much poorer than normal times.
Right.
On the degrowth on certain clients and the whole changes due to the same. But on a longer term, so if you kind of look at a 20-year average, we are more close to the 20% return on investments. We've gone through a phase of heavy investments and a couple of years of degrowth where these ratios are, both numerator and denominator has been affected. And now we are looking to continue to grow and, if you see the assets and fixed assets, we need to sweat them. We need to grow our business on the assets base that we have. And the denominator being the same as the numerator increases, we will see these return ratios coming back to LD levels.
So what's the potential for us to kind of sweat these assets in terms of, where can we take the asset turns to from where they are today?
So from a entirely fixed asset, roughly we have 700 odd crore of fixed asset in the net worth, which are currently enough for us to do even double or triple the revenue that we have today.
Okay. But this double to triple revenue, so it's just like how somebody else finds it very difficult to enter your business. You will also enter to kind of, so it's like a very, very sticky business from the end customer point of view, right?
Yeah, so we are not saying that we can double our revenue in 1 year or 2 years. It will grow 10-15% per basis per year on year, but the capex outflow for next 7-8 years of growth is already done.
Okay, got it. And second question is on this, the small acquisitions that we've been making to kind of expand our end market, addressable market. Now, there again, is there any ROE consideration? And so many times what happens is we've seen with a host of other companies, right, that acquisitions end up being the drag on ROEs overall. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. So they kind of affect the balance sheet, swell up the balance sheet, but do not kind of give you the expected return over the long run. So is there something that kind of we underwrite? Yeah.
One point which is important to note is that while we are talking about consolidated ROE, we can also look at the ROE on the European business acquisition based on the fact that the risk-free return on euro terms is almost close to zero.
Okay.
So even if we make a 8 or 10% ROE in euro terms, then we are making a similar, risk-free return adjusted, quite a good return on those investments. So
okay.
While the consolidated business basis also the ROEs are, in INR terms also they would be ballpark 20%. In euro terms, they are definitely very attractive because we also borrow and the kind of risk-free risk-free return on euro is almost at zero level today.
Okay.
So these are funded by low-cost debt.
These are all basically funded by euro-denominated debt at very low numbers.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I'll get back to the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Ohri from Progressive Shares. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. I have 2 questions, which is related to the investments made in the Ayurvedic extract business, which could be the next growth stage for evolution in terms of the value-added fragrances and flavors. So would you like to share some thoughts on that as to what opportunities you are seeing and what would be the market size that is there in the domestic or the international market?
I would club together the Ayurvedic with the earlier discussion on Santalol, these are all the natural active ingredients or natural based products, which is a general trend which we see across the board. We call it the kind of wellness platform, naturals and wellness platform. We are looking to enhance this. Currently, our business is around the 5-6 crores annual level. With the addition of Santalol, addition of basic research around some of the well-known actives within the Indian space, we will look to enhance this business more as a value addition for our current business offerings in fragrances. So by itself, there are other extract manufacturers who are already in the business, and that market is maybe estimated 1,500 odd crore market. But our objective is to use this for a value addition and making specialized extraction with science-based formulations where we can enhance the value for our clients. So by itself, the Ayurvedic and the Cantalol investments may not be a large, maybe I would anticipate another 15-20 crores of business in the near future we will get from these activities. It is a platform where our product development team achieves a lot of unique value addition.
So, sir, the margin profile in this domain for Ayurvedic products or maybe immunity boosters, these are
around the same 50% gross margin level.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Agam Shah as an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. So I had only a question. So is it possible that we can maybe grow in a high double digits, let's say northwards of 15-20%? Let's say when your renewable, this Sunwood opportunity or any other opportunity has come in, is it possible that for 1 or 2 years we can do a 15-20% kind of a growth?
So there is obviously businesses opportunities which are large, say 40-50 crores. If one of the opportunity materialize next year, you would see a year where we do 20% growth. But these are things which typically last for 2-3 years. They are cyclical businesses, and when you win the business, you get a big leg up. And in an event that you are not able to defend or you lose a business, you look at a leg down where you will lose 2-3% of your business in 1 year. So this incremental 3% over and above, or 5% over and above the 12-13% underlying growth can happen for 1 or 2 years, and it has its own dynamics where the global brands have a core listing, have a certain time frame, life cycle for their products. So our underlying 12-13% growth indication is on our current business, which is not cyclical. And on top of it, we may get some additional business for a few years, which is more on kind of cyclical product life cycle. So the product can come in, you can have 50 crore business for 3 years, after which the business will go to somebody else, and then you may lose that business. So this is in addition to the underlying growth of 12% that we have.
So is it safe to assume that with the, as you answered the previous participant's question, on a 700 crore capex, for next at least 3 to 5 years, we can grow at 10-12% on a percentage basis?
So our capex intensity will be quite low. I anticipate around the 25 crore mark for the capex. Largely in Europe now with the new investments there will be some additional capex there. Plus some automation, improvement in laboratory equipment, upgradation, things like this. But from the plant and machinery and capacity point of view, we have adequately invested.
Correct. And as per your debt plan, is it pretty to assume that the next 1.5 years you will be debt free?
I think let us make the assumption little different way. I am confident that we will be able to generate 300 crores of cash flow in this 2-3 years period, and probably kind of 2.5 years ballpark number. I would just put a disclaimer on the current situation. Given the COVID, there may be a few months of difficult growth and so on and so forth. But anyway, between 2 and 3 years, we will definitely have a positive cash flow of 300 odd crores, which would enable us to reduce the debt. But we will look at opportunities in case there are something coming up. So I don't want to target that we will have a debt-free situation, but to have the target that so much free cash flow is generated in the next 2.5 years. And if we don't find any investment opportunities, then yes, we will reduce the debt accordingly.
Okay, thank you and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikhil Jain from Galaxy International. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to understand who is our biggest competitor in, let's say, the Indian market, and what would be the market share that we actually hold in India and in Italy, let's say?
It would not be very fair to compare our competitor in India. We have now almost 45% of our business outside India as well. In the overview, we have the global 4 or 5 global FNF companies like Givaudan, IFF, Firmenich, Symrise, which are the global competitors, which are also our large competitors within the Indian market or pretty much in all of the markets where we are operating. So I would look at these as our potential competitors across the region.
But would it be fair to say that, let's say, the top 5 competition, right, including yourself and the other 4 competition, would actually be controlling, let's say, around 70 to 80% of the market, or maybe a little more?
Within the Indian market, yes. Outside, the situation in each market, each region is slightly different. But in general, top 4 5 players are controlling 70 to 80% market in pretty much all the markets where we are operating.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Apurva Mehta from AM Investments. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to understand that any synergy benefits can be accrued from CFS, where we have a common R&D structure or common raw material sourcing kind of thing. Any synergy?
Obviously, you have identified 2 of the main synergy areas, where is product development, R&D development, sharing of product prototypes, synergies on raw material. All of those are obvious synergies which we will play out and which we will take advantage of in the years to come. At this moment, given the pandemic, we are pretty much we are not really driving the synergies aspect of the business, making sure that the businesses are running through the pandemic in the right sort of manner. And in better environment, we will look to drive the synergies from further consolidation.
Any cross-selling of products to their customer or that product to Indian customer kind of thing?
Yes, I mean, obviously the objective is to enhance the product offering both for Europe as well as for the Indian market. Like I alluded, the Ayurvedic extract and naturals platform for Europe is a very strong platform where India is a well-known source of many of these naturals. So we are looking at value-added products from these naturals to be sold in European market. And likewise, there are certain categories where the European-based raw materials can be used, and we will use the synergies at the appropriate times. I would say that the synergy part of the equation for CFS and us and with Nova, we have not yet built into our results because they are more or less running as standalone companies at the moment.
And can you just quantify that the new development, the new product which we have developed over the last 2-3 years, what kind of contributions are we getting from the new development? And are these new developments always margin accretive?
So typically new developments are margin accretive. There can be, at an aggregate level, definitely they are margin accretive. Maybe product by product it can be slightly different. And to answer that question, roughly, I think last 3 years we have 12% of our business has been in new products and new business, which has been fairly steady kind of ratio between 10 and 15% of the business is on products which are developed in the last 3-4 years.
Okay. And on the customer, getting new customers and all these things, how is the timeline to get a new customer kind of thing from pitching to a new customer and getting to a new customer, really selling some product?
So different markets, different situation. We have obviously within India quite a large market reach in the fragrance business. Flavors, we are still adding a lot of new customers. Outside India, Europe and Southeast Asia, Middle East, we are adding new customers and new products. So it's different in different markets.
And last question, sir, how is the flavors market? Can we, really grow at a faster pace in the flavors market? Because our revenue is too small. So can we grow at a larger pace than definitely on the fragrance market?
Yes, I think the flavor market we have continuing to grow, and we will see a faster rate of growth as a percentage of growth in the flavors market than in the fragrance overall market. We anticipate basically excess of 15-17% CAGR growth in the flavor market.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shishir Agrawal from Top 100 Public Shareholders. Please go ahead.
Dear Kedarji, we'd like to congratulate you on the fantastic results and year-on-year growth in such a challenging year. My question would be on... Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question would be on BASF ISO Bionics. What would be the top-line expectation for FY23, FY24, and what margins are we looking at?
So the typical top line, we would sort of pencil in something like 25 crores from this business. And typical margin, because we are basically distributing the product, the margin in that would not be very high. I would anticipate a 10% margin, but there is no additional cost. So what be maybe 1 or 2% marketing cost, and 7-8% should be the net margin for us on that product.
And how much of this Sandal ISO Bionics we would be able to incorporate in our current SNF products, which SHK sales currently?
That value is another probably 5 odd crores will go in in-house consumption, which we have not considered at this 25 crores. So maybe another 5 crores will be in-house, which will help us manage the gross margin to some extent, reduce our gross margin. But that impact is quite minimal.
And what would be the terms for this contract? I mean, you have a long-term arrangement for 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. And would we be in future, the SHK group will be entered into joint venture with BASF for manufacturing the same in India?
So it is possible that various options we can look at in the future. I mean, we don't rule out anything. We have been working very close for collaboration with the company from the ISO Bionics from the beginning. So we have also contract manufacturing for them some other products, and we will look forward to some additional long-term association of manufacturing or it's early days in the product, so I don't want to comment anything for longer term, but it will make sense to have some kind of domestic manufacturing for this product in the future.
My last question would be, what are the new molecule product launches we are looking at in current year?
New molecule?
New molecule or new product launches in current year?
So our typically product launches, we do roughly 500 odd fragrance and flavor launches in a year. So that's the main product launches. In terms of new molecules, we are not launching new molecules to the market. They are mainly for our in-house use, and we continue to develop and use them internally.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be the last question for today. I now hand the conference over to the management for their closing comments. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you. I hope we have been able to answer all your questions satisfactorily. Should you need any further clarifications or would like to know more about the company, please feel free to contact our team or CDR India. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us on this call.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of SH Kelkar and Company, that concludes today's call. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.